If you've ever been into personal development, or even if you just had goals or ambitions that you were really serious about accomplishing, you've probably come across the idea of having a morning routine, right? A set structure of things you want to do in the morning that will allow you to be as efficient and productive as possible throughout the day. And it's a great idea. And for a long time, I've been a huge encourager of morning routines. Because for me, I've always wanted to get the important things done in the morning so that I don't delay it till the night. You know, I've experienced leaving things till the night. It didn't really work out as well. I want to do it in the morning. That's probably why you've done it as well. In the morning, you can control it. No phone calls are coming in. No one's going to bother you. It's a time where you can be isolated by yourself and do what you need to do. I get it. I love it. But recently, as I've been trying to tweak my morning routines or implement new morning routines, I realized I don't want it. I think I'm going to give up on morning routines. And that doesn't mean I'm going to give up on the idea of doing important things in the morning that I feel like doing, but it's giving up the idea that I have to conform to a list that I created on a daily basis. I found it didn't work for me. Let me know in the comments as you watch this video if you relate to this at all. Because what I found is that when I have a morning routine, maybe 5 things that I really want to do, I started finding myself waking up in the morning being resentful about the thing that I planned, the past Adrian planned for me to get done. And sometimes I drag myself through it, I get it done, there's a certain sense of achievement and fulfillment. But then the next day, or even the day before the next day, I'm anticipating doing the thing in the morning. And sometimes I just didn't feel like doing it. And it got to a point where it was having a negative effect on my day. Because whether I achieved the thing or not, I felt like I was forcing myself to commit to an obligation or a set of rules that a previous Adrian set for me, and I no longer agree with it. So for me, I've always been changing my morning routine, adding things to it, subtracting things from it, and it got to the point where it felt like a chore. It felt like an obligation, and the joy that I got from doing the individual things on my own time, or as I felt like doing it, became something that I dreaded thinking about going forward. You know, there's been times where a typical morning routine for me would be taking cold showers. I went through a phase of doing that. I went through a phase of having protein shakes in the morning, right? I had a phase of that. A staple in my life for the mornings is drinking water, doing some stretches, and doing some deep breathing. Those are the 3 core components. When I give myself the freedom in the room to do what I feel like doing, what my body feels like it needs in that morning, all of a sudden that is what sets up my day. I realize it's not the number of things I accomplish in the mornings that make me feel satisfied and fulfilled. It's following through on the things like listening to my body and asking myself, what do I need? You know, the breathing, the water, the stretching, those are the things that I feel like I need every day. Working out in the morning, I tried going through a phase of that. It didn't quite work. Tried eating like a nice breakfast in the morning. It didn't quite work. I was forcing myself to do that. I eventually pulled back, started doing intermittent fasting, started delaying when I eat till 12, maybe even as late as 3 or 5 o'clock. And I felt that was so much more comforting to me than it was trying to commit myself to this set of activities that I promised myself I was going to do. I'm a big integrity guy, especially self-integrity. If I tell myself I'm going to do something, I really commit to doing that thing. And so it hurt when, as I set a morning routine and I as an individual was changing and developing and learning, and my preferences were changing, that my morning routine wasn't. And as I would change it, I feel like a sense I was disappointing the past me. So I found that having a structured routine every morning, I decided that wasn't the way for me. And you might be finding this is the same for you, that having a structured morning routine isn't something that gives you the most joy, that gives you the best sense of satisfaction. And it seems odd to me that I'm making this video right now, because for so long I've been such an evangelist of having morning routines. And now I'm realizing, you know what, as a human being, we're always changing, we're always adapting, we're always finding new interests, right? Some things come and some things go, they serve a purpose. And I realized, for me, morning routines is one of the things that going forward, I'm gonna be more fluid with. I'm not gonna do something just because I made a promise to myself in the past, but I'm gonna ask myself every morning, like, what's important for me to have right now? Is doing a prolonged stretch important for me right now? Okay, let's do that. Is sitting in meditation and just being quiet and going within what's important for me right now? Okay, let's do that. Let's spend more time with that. Maybe I want to work out. Let's do something like that. So I'd encourage you, if you're the type of person that has bought into this idea that you must have a morning routine to be successful, you must have a morning routine in order to progress in your specific goal, I want to give you permission to rethink that, to instead let your body indicate what you want to do. Now, with all this being said, I'm not saying that people shouldn't have morning routines or that they're not valuable. It was super valuable for me to go through, and I still encourage people to do that, to go through that experience and see what it feels like to do your most important tasks in the morning, right? Go to the extent of the threshold for what you can do in the morning and see how that feels. Taste it a little bit, and then say, you know what, it was a good experience. Let me pull back and then find my sweet spot. And that's what I've been doing. So I think it's important for people to test that out, not to just take my word for it or choose to not get involved in the first place with trying to be as productive as possible. I think it's important. And I'm not saying that I won't have morning routines going forward, but what I've noticed for myself is I've given up on committing myself to something instead of letting myself be more fluid, having hard rules and hard edges around what I'm going to do in a day. It's part of self-love for me to not be so focused on being productive and not to be so focused on getting things done and always being in action, but instead give myself the freedom to say, hey, like, you can come in the morning and just spend an hour doing yoga, spend an hour breathing, spend an hour going on a walk, and just not feeling like you need to get this thing done as quick as possible in order to move on to the next thing because, you know, we're some efficiency robots, so we need to get things done. More and more, I'm finding it's important for me to not become like religious with certain practices. You know, for a long time, I would journal every day because I told myself I would. And then some days I'd be journaling and it's just like, this is the same day as yesterday. What was the point of that? And it's at that moment I realized, okay, we can change. We can be fluid with our decision making. And what I decided I was going to do is, instead of journaling every day, like we're often told to do in the self-development world, I said any day that something occurs that isn't normal, that hasn't occurred in the past week, I'll journal on that day. I'll make a note of anything significant. But if nothing changes, I won't kind of force myself to feel compelled into doing that thing. I mean, if you want to look at it this way, for me, my morning routine now is to not have a routine. My morning routine is to ask myself simply, what's in the best interest for you in this moment? And whatever comes from that, I'm completely okay with it. And I hope that you kind of, if you've put yourself into this idea of having a morning routine and you've noticed that you don't find yourself feeling satisfied by the end of the day because you're a slave to this checklist, consider being more fluid. Consider allowing yourself to have the space to do what feels best in that moment. Instead of racking yourself up in this world of productivity and efficiency and getting things done and being busy and not having a second to breathe and thinking, convincing yourself that that's some type of heroic sacrifice you're making towards yourself in order to accomplish a greater sense of happiness, especially from a mental health standpoint. Leaving space for you instead of always the activity. I hope if you've ever found yourself struggling with the idea of morning routines and being as productive as possible, that this video has helped you in some way, because I know that over my journey over the years with trying to be productive and be the best that I can be, I've sometimes locked myself into a corner and found myself in a position that I wasn't really happy about in the first place. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.